Let's get some insight into the impeachment hearing and the IG report from Texas Republican Congressman John Ratcliffe, who serves on both the Intelligence and Judiciary committees. Thank you for coming here live. We appreciate it. I want to ask you about impeachment first. Is it a foregone conclusion that the House will vote to impeach President Trump?
Yes, it appears that the Democrats have burned the lifeboats behind them. They've made this decision. They've got nowhere to go. I think they have to answer to their base, and I think it's a terrible decision for the American people. You can see what it's not based on. It is entirely political, but as a Republican, I got to tell you, Bret, it's good for us.
Do you sense or have any reason to believe that any of your GOP colleagues will vote for impeachment?
Nope. And I, on the other hand, I can say with pretty good certainty that there will be Democrats that won't vote to impeach the president.
Do you think Nancy Pelosi has the votes right now?
I think she probably does. I think she won't call the vote unless she has the votes. They're going at breakneck speed. They're losing support, and before they lose enough to get it across the finish line, that's why they want to have this vote as early as next week, after only being in the Judiciary Committee, the Committee of Jurisdiction, for less than a week.
What happens if your side does not get a minority day hearing, which it doesn't look like it's happening?
We won't. I think it'll just demonstrate to the American people how perverted this process has been, how they won't follow any of the precedents or standards, particularly as it relates to fairness during the process.
You mentioned today an interview with the Inspector General of the Intelligence Committee. It was a little, we're trying to follow it here on set.
It was a little cryptic.
Yeah, but what were you trying to say?
I had to be, because it's still not been released by Chairman Schiff. It's the first deposition that was taken. It's the only one that hasn't been released. And the reason is, it doesn't have anything to do with protecting the whistleblower identity. It has to do with protecting the whistleblower and Chairman Schiff from having their credibility questioned. The whistleblower did not make truthful disclosures to the Inspector General. I questioned the Inspector General about that. The transcript will reveal that. It ought to be made public. No one should be voting to impeach an American president before they look at the real origins of this. The origins of this was not a whistleblower filing a complaint on August 12th. It was a person who later became a whistleblower walking into Chairman Schiff's office 2 weeks before that.
So you have zero hope that you will hear from Adam Schiff or the whistleblower?
He wasn't even at the hearing today. You know, he's been making all of the decisions behind this, and he wasn't even at the hearing today.
Okay, let's turn to the IG report. This is the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Take a listen.
This report conclusively debunks the baseless conspiracy that the investigation into Mr. Trump's campaign and its ties to Russia originated with political bias.
That was the top headline from what a lot of the Democrats focused on in this line. We did not find documentary or testimonial evidence that political bias or improper motivation influenced the FBI's decision to seek FISA authority on Carter Page. Your response to the senator and what you take from this report?
So there's two important things that went on here. One, did the FBI meet the very low threshold for an articulate factual basis to reasonably suspect that there was a threat to national security? The Inspector General made the conclusion that they met that very low threshold to get the investigation started. The problem for the FBI and for Democrats that want to somehow declare this as a victory is everything after that is an indictment of the process. Even if there was a basis to open it, everything that came after it was exculpatory. There was no reason to continue it. And the second part of this that's really important is when they got to the stage of a FISA application in October, as you see in here, this report is just completely full of what the Inspector General politely says are errors and omissions. Another way of saying that are lies, misrepresentations, false statements, and the failure to turn over exculpatory information.
Is that what strikes you most about this report?
Absolutely. So it's a validation of every one of us that had been saying there was FISA abuse. That's why the Attorney General's statement today was, this is clear evidence of FISA abuse. Unfortunately, we were right about that. And that's a real problem for the FBI.
But this doesn't back up the president's "it's a coup to take him down" in this report.
Actually, I don't know that you can say that, Bret.
Or at least the IG says that.
Well, the IG's role is to find facts, not to necessarily make conclusions. And I actually agree with most of the facts that the IG finds. And the facts in here say that the FBI's senior leadership kept an investigation going where they knew they had no evidence, that was based on a dossier that was entirely unreliable, and they knew it, and they did that to continue an investigation into a candidate that then became president of the United States, and they didn't have a basis to do that. And that's in this report.
What about the criticism of the Attorney General that he comes out with this statement today, clearly differing on several points with the IG, and a short time later, the U.S. Attorney, John Durham, puts out a statement that he says does not jive with what the Inspector General finds. I mean, it's pretty rare, is it not?
No, and it's not, because really what it is a sign of respect. John Durham waited until Horowitz's report came out. That's why he hasn't made public statements. But now that Horowitz's report is out, he's free to talk about the fact that what he has found. And the first thing that he told you was, I appreciate the Inspector General, but my jurisdiction isn't limited, and I have greater jurisdiction, and what I have found is not consistent with his conclusions about that seminal issue, the predication issue. The Attorney General's special prosecutor in this case, John Durham, is saying, I have a problem with the predication here. I disagree with the Attorney General. There was not probable cause to open this investigation, so you know, I think
critics would say, if he's a prosecutor, does he make his case, bring it to a grand jury, make a charge before making a statement? Republicans were very critical of James Comey about what he did.
And he didn't make a finding with respect to that. What he said was, I take issue with the Inspector General's findings and conclusions regarding predication issue.
He didn't say what his was.
He didn't say what his was, but I think it's a clear sign of where he's going on this, which is that I have greater jurisdiction. I've done a lot more with regard to this investigation, and I think in short order we're going to hear that John Durham's going to find that the predication just wasn't there, as most of us really don't see it even in this report.
So we've characterized on this panel, talking about this, that there's two tracks here. There's the impeachment track, and then there's this John Durham track, IG track. And is it your sense that there is a race now to figure out who's going to get to the finish line on what happened?
I've said that all along, that that's what's driving this fast track. They want to impeach this president so that when news like this comes out and they say, gosh, we're sorry there was FISA abuse, but the guy still should have been impeached. That's why they've been racing through this. This report, by itself, I think the more you look at it, the more you see it's an indictment of Jim Comey's leadership at the FBI. I mean, this is you know, a profound statement about how bad things were there with regard to an investigation that was continued without evidence to support it. I think folks at the FBI are horrified and dismayed by what's in this report, and it's only going to get worse, I think, by what John Durham finds, because he has the ability to go out and talk to the intelligence communities.
And people who weren't working in the government.
People who weren't working in the government.
Last thing, Democrats are moving a prescription bill this week. It looks like we're hearing there's movement on USMCA. Does that undercut in any way the GOP argument that Democrats are ultra-focused on impeachment and can't get anything else done?
It's been their plan all along. Nancy Pelosi, it's a worst-kept secret that once they voted on impeachment, moved that off, they would shift to, we're ready to get to work. You know, we're moving forward on USMCA, prescription drugs, all the things that we've been criticizing. The problem, Bret, is we should have been doing this 3, 4, 5 months ago.
Congressman, we appreciate the time.
You bet. Great to be with you.